friends, this is Govan here with GovanKilgour.com. Yes, I know that site isn't up yet. It's just a redirect to my Secrets of Longevity site, but in time there will be a blog where I'll be either writing and having this video as an accompaniment when I post to this channel, or I'll be doing a blog post that I turn into a video through reading off a teleprompter. But anyways, I just wanted to get that out there first of all, but also mention that I have my Teutonic Shamanism videos now as a separate channel. If you've been following Secrets of Longevity, you saw that I was posting them on there, but I do have its own channel now, and you can find a link to that below. It's going to be about 500 subscribers before I can actually get a specific URL with some sort of name in there. I'm not 100% sure if it'll be Teutonic Shamanism or not yet as a channel name, but yeah, you can check it out there. I've got one video up as of the making of this video, and you can see the new intro I have on there, which is kind of intricate, kind of like I've done for the vlogs here, with a spirituality type of theme. Now, what I wanted to talk about today was the interesting concept within logical fallacies of the ad hominem. So a lot of people are familiar with the term. They might have seen me use it at times in comments here or there online somewhere. And we have to be very specific if we want to be integrous ourselves with people's perception of us, of the proper way to use it. Now, there's three things that one can do within an argument or a discussion with someone or a debate that are very similar, and I wanted to clarify the differences, one being ad hominems, one being an insult, and then the third being a conclusion, or in this case, a negative conclusion about someone. So the simplest example is calling someone stupid. You can say, in the ad hominem sense, you're stupid, therefore your points have no validity. That's an ad hominem because we're dismissing someone's argument with a label we're putting on them. We're avoiding the addressing of the points, however valid they may or may not be, but we're sidestepping that and using an ad hominem. That's the actual definition and use of an ad hominem, is a insult, basically. It is similar to an insult, but it's using that as a way of avoiding their points. Now, an insult on its own isn't technically an ad hominem. We could simply not have the time or patience to deal with someone, and we could be really insulting towards them. That doesn't mean we're dismissing their arguments. We could even then still dismiss their arguments and deal with them, but then add an insult on the end of what we're saying. It's not the best tactic to use, but some people use it, and it's not technically an ad hominem. The last, a conclusion, would be the accurate use of a label, even if it's a negative one. So we could call someone stupid in the classical sense. In the past, within psychiatric institutions, they had different gradations of mental deficiency. So there was, I guess, retardation at the IQ of 70 or below. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know what exact IQ points are what here, but maybe stupid was like 80. Idiot might have been below 60. So you see, they were an actual specific gradation of imbecility. And if we were trying to make the case that someone fit that definition, we could put that forward. But I don't think that's going to be relevant for most people. Now, hopefully you don't make these mistakes yourself in getting them confused, but it's also very good to be specific about what's coming at you, what people are throwing your way. To think of a recent spat I had online, there were some words exchanged, and it was a discussion about immigration, actually, within Canada with some actual friends I know in person. I guess we could call them ex-friends now. People that don't want to associate me purely because of political leanings, which is an odd concept in and of itself. Most people, at least rational people, I would think, naturally would desire to separate those from one's relationships. If you get into that, you get into that, but you don't let that be the determining factor whether you connect with someone that you have a long-term bond and relationship with as a friend. Anyways, this person chose to do that, but they had concluded that I was a bigot, yet when I asked them to define how what my stance was conveying fit that definition, they were unable to do it. So they were using an ad hominem, the term bigot, to avoid dealing with my points, which were not extreme in the slightest. It was simply calling for libertarian immigration versus mass immigration, and I did a video about that not too long ago on this channel, and how, economic incentives for immigration are far different than, taking in X number of people, giving them subsidized housing, and then shunting them into the workforce whether or not the economy actually needs it. So one is a burden on the people within a country that are taking them in, versus the other is actually a help to the country. So this radical stance I had, because it was simply about the topic of immigration, this person concluded I was a bigot. Yet they couldn't show it, they weren't willing to do it, so they were leaving it off as an ad hominem. They could have left it off as an insult if they were clear, saying, you know what, I don't have time for this. I recognize I'm not actually dealing with your points, but I think you're a bigot. That would be different than actually saying, I'm not dealing with your points because X, Y, Z. Insert whatever strong, politically correct language you wish to insert. So some other terms that are similar to this are homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, racist, along with bigot. And the problems with these terms is they're labels that if you break them down to their actual words and the definitions of the words, they often don't fit the way that they're used. So any other words with phobia thrown in there, we obviously know that means fear of. And most people who have an aversion to something are usually doing it for an ideological reason, not because they're actually afraid of that thing. One could say they're afraid of the results of those people doing whatever, and I'm not saying I'm for or against any of the things that people might associate with those things. But yeah, it is manipulative language, and that is not conducive to getting your point across, and it's also not conducive to people hearing your point if you're being labeled with that. So you have to point out to other people if they're using an insult or if they're using an ad hominem, and then try and push them to use a conclusion. Say, yeah, if you can show me that the conclusion is correct for this term in terms of what I'm saying, then go ahead. But with those terms, it's virtually impossible to label someone with that unless you have proof of their intent. So someone could say something inflammatory about, say, immigration, more inflammatory than what I was saying, and someone could call them racists. People are calling Donald Trump racist, for example. Yet it's very simple with what Donald Trump's saying. He's giving reasons for the policies he's enacting. So because it's not based in hate, just dislike of someone without rationality, it's actually based in something that he and whomever supports him believes to be a problem. You can't call it racist because it's not against people because of an attribute they can't control. It's against people because when they move into the country illegally, it's causing negative repercussions in a number of areas. I'm not saying I'm for or against Trump. I think any politician is generally going to be a puppet to some degree, perhaps Trump less so, because he doesn't have all the corporate and union sponsors that have propped him up during his campaign. So those are some pretty key ideas. Another thing with the term, you also have to look at the origin of it. Terms like Islamophobia originated from extremist groups trying to further their agenda of acceptance of their extremism. Islamophobia was proposed and pushed into the media spotlight by the Muslim Brotherhood. That, to me, should be widely known. So I would implore anyone watching this that the next time you feel the urge to use that term or you see someone else using it, you call them out on it and tell them the origin of it. You can look this up. It takes 2 seconds of searching online. Is Islamophobia, Muslim Brotherhood, and you'll see the connection and how that was started. You know, if NAMBLA came up with some sort of like pedophobia term and that started becoming widely used in the media, I think most people would have a strong guttural reaction against that, the normalization of that. But that's the equivalent we're talking about here. The Muslim Brotherhood, an extremist terrorist organization, essentially, creating a term that's designed to shut down constructive dialogue on a given topic. That's pretty fucked up. So that's why it's really important, again, coming back to this idea of these 3 categories of strongly worded terms. Something else I want to mention was often I make a conclusion about people and that will end my discussion with someone or my time that I allot to debating with someone online. And it reaches a point where I describe how what they're doing is sophistry, which is emotional manipulation of an argument. It's a classical term for a style of philosophy from the Greeks. And it changed over time and became a very toxic form of sort of emotive argument. And that is now a term that describes that style of arguing, when people excessively use terms like homophobia, Islamophobia, racist, etc., they're being sophists. And it's the overuse of all those logical fallacies that puts them in that category. But I can actually describe, and I do say, this is what you're doing. This fits the definition of this word, which has a negative connotation. You're a sophist. And that label fits. It's not an insult. It's not an ad hominem. It's a conclusion. It's a negative conclusion about someone. Just like if they were putting forth a good argument, I could say they have amazing intellectual prowess. That is a conclusion based on evidence we can point out. So I hope that gave you some insights into these concepts. I'd be curious to know what you think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.